I'm John.
I'm Rob.
And this is the Mint One podcast,
where we talk all things NFTs and the rise of blockchain gaming.
So Rob, this past week it's been GDC 2023.
It has, and there has been a ton of Web3 news we need to talk about.
So Rob, GDC 2023, the first of the big gaming conferences of the year. Have you been following what's going on the ground?
I have, but I've also not really had a choice. I mean, there's been, like, obviously we write daily content on blockchain gaming, and the daily content has been just in abundance from GDC, this is probably the first year I'd say that's the case. Last year we saw a lot more Web3 and blockchain-based news. The year before that, I don't think we really saw much at all. So I'd say this is the first year where it's been major, and there's been a lot of crossover announcements where game companies that would have been there anyway, developers, publishers, are talking about blockchain, even though they would have been doing an announcement no matter what, because that's what they do every year. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty big moment, I think, for blockchain gaming. I feel like I say that a lot, but it feels like we've been having a lot of these big sort of, okay, we've just taken that step forward. And I feel like the vitriol is slowing a little. People don't seem to be quite as spicy about blockchain in games from what I've seen.
From what I've seen, people don't have the usual things to throw at it. Like, for example, the MapleStory universe that we talked about briefly last week.
Yeah.
If they'd announced that 2 years ago, it'd be like, oh, NFTs are killing the planet, and it's just a way for you to make more money out of us. But then MapleStory came out of the gate and said, hey, yes, there's NFTs, but we're not selling them. Only way to get them is to play. And I've seen some response to, videos on YouTube, and a lot of it is, boo NFTs. But they don't really have a reason why. It's just, I don't like NFTs.
Yeah, it's a cash grab. In what way?
Yeah. So I think the narrative is changing. Of course, there's still a lot of discourse, but I feel a lot of the reasons people had to dislike blockchain games are starting to ebb away, especially with some of the announcements that we saw this week. So the biggest one, I feel, by far, was the partnership between Immutable and Polygon.
Yep.
Rob, did you see something like this coming? Because when I saw it, I thought, how was this happening? It would be like, I don't know, Apple and Microsoft agreeing on something, or, Microsoft and Sony saying, hey, let's work together on console games. It seemed preposterous, but dreams can come true, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I wrote in my article, I had no idea this was coming. And I think it was so surprising because, and this is what you just alluded to, is I saw them as rivals. I saw them as actually kind of similar rivals. Polygon is more, I don't know, multifaceted. They're looking at a lot of different areas that blockchain can be useful. Obviously, they onboarded Starbucks, Reddit. We talk about those all the time. But they do have a big gaming division. The gaming part is who we speak to at Polygon. And they do have a lot of people working on gaming. So I kind of saw that department and IMX as really battling as these sort of EVM layer twos. They're taking on each other to try and dominate that Ethereum based gaming. And there's no chance I would have predicted that they work together. And I'm still not 100% sure why. I don't want this to be done the wrong way. I love that they're doing this, but I don't know why. I'm still not 100% sure why they've done it, because it's definitely the best move for gaming. It's definitely the best move for gamers, but it's not often companies do this.
No, it seems it's funny to say this in the blockchain space, but a shockingly Web3 thing to do.
Yes,
it is. We're both the biggest people, so why not work together? Which, as I
everyone
said,
usually wants a monopoly, don't they? And this is kind of foregoing that.
Yeah, and it's great, I think, for, blockchain evangelists and people that are really, love the idea of people working together in Web3. This is, you couldn't really expect for anything more. And it's great to see them, not just issue a press release and go through all that, but, be at GDC on stage and announce it, and then, get all the photo ops and show that, hey, We're literally working together. Here's us standing next to each other doing a presentation. Here's us pictured. Here's us talking to, it's a legitimate partnership rather than just some PR fluff that they want to make a big song and dance about. So the core of the partnership is built around a brand new immutable. Let's try that again. The brand new Immutable Zero Knowledge EVM, which is basically a brand new wrap-up that makes it even easier for game devs to implement NFTs and, reap the benefits of blockchain technology in their games. Other than that ZK EVM, they've not spoken too much about how deep this partnership goes. I would imagine it has to be more than just one tool. But do you think they're holding anything back? Do you think they might be playing a more active role in helping to develop some of these upcoming blockchain games?
I think they're definitely holding stuff back. But there wasn't enough. This is a substantial partnership, making a dedicated blockchain between them. I mean, that's huge. There's got to be more going on. They've got to have, even if it's an internal roadmap, they've got to have some sort of vision for how this plays out long term, what they're going to do with it. Obviously, IMX has arguably, I'd say maybe not even arguably, got the best games in development. Of all the ecosystems that are boasting games, I don't think anyone can really top IMX. So it's a big win for Polygon in that front. And then obviously Polygon. So I think this is built, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is built off Polygon's own ZK EVM, which the mainnet of that launches very, very soon. And I saw, it might have been in the press release, so take it with a pinch of salt, but I saw someone say that Polygon ZK EVM is the holy grail of Ethereum scaling. So it really does feel like a beautiful symbiosis. Like you've got both titans in their own right combining to create something. It doesn't make any sense, John, to be honest with you, no. Because it's just it's too good. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how either side. I don't even know how they got either side to the table, because it just feels like you said, like this is what we wanted for Web3, but you're always worried you sound a bit idealistic when you're like, oh, we want, it's shared, no monopolies, and it just seems, it really strong. But I imagine that they are holding back some things that they've got in the pipeline, which, I mean, that could be huge. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be. As you say, it just seems like a perfect match. You've got Immutable X that, to me, are the undisputed leaders in blockchain gaming, and Polygon that have done the most so far to get blockchain into people's everyday lives with Starbucks and Reddit and with all the rest of their entertainment partnerships. So, yeah, watch this space. I guess we'll see where this partnership goes between the two. But at GDC, there were a couple of upcoming games that were announced to be using this new Immutable X Polygon ZK EVM. One of which is a throwback to a game from 2015, Shardbound. Did you see this one?
I did. I've been contacted by a few people about trying this, and I haven't had the chance yet. I'll be honest, I haven't heard of it. It's not really the genre I hunt down. But I was told it was pretty popular and then just sort of petered out like, most games do. Have you played it? Do you know much about it?
I have not played it, but looking at footage of it, it looks like something I would really enjoy. I described it in the article on NFT Insider as a mix between Hearthstone and Heroes of Might and Magic. Right. That kind of hex grid gameplay, plus there's cards that you can play and they have an effect on the board. It just looks like everything that I enjoy in like a good, strategy-based, tactics-based game. So it'll be one that I'm following with great interest. And yeah, if you're watching this and you can get me access, I would love to give it a go.
I think I can probably get you. I mean, we should be doing this off air, but I think I can probably get it because I've been contacted by a few people to give it a go. And it does look good. It's not something I've ever gravitated towards. I don't really gravitate towards TCGs, and then Skyweaver kind of put me through a loop because I just really liked it, and it happened to be Web3. But there are similar games that Hex. I don't know what the genre is really called. Almost auto battler, hex grid kind of that sort of thing. I do really like, and it looks like it's got a lot of elements of all of those. So yeah, that was a big one. And then I think I know which one you're going to say next. Which one are you going to say next for the announcement?
I was going to go to Infinite Victory.
Oh, okay. I don't know which one to say next.
Oh, okay. So, Infinite Victory is kind of I was going to say spiritual successor, but it's more an actual tangible successor to a game called Ultimate Rivals, which was a PC and iOS based title from that first kicked off a couple of years ago. It's very unusual. It's like basketball crossed with baseball crossed with football. It's a very strange game to try and explain. But the big hook with that is just the amount of officially licensed sports leagues and likenesses that they have in the game. There's hundreds. You know, they've got all the top sports leagues like the NBA, the NFL, I think the MLS in the US. They've also got, I think, some European based sports that have licensed the game as well, and direct from the individuals themselves, their likenesses. And it looks like a very fast-paced, very fun, arcadey sports title. I don't think they've said to this point exactly how blockchain technology will play a part in it, but the game looks great, so I have no arguments from me.
Yeah, I haven't seen any gameplay footage. And it looks like this is another example of a game that was predating Immutable.
Yeah, it was, I believe, as I say, it was initially released under a different name several years ago, and I think it didn't pick up too much traction, and now it's another one of those, hey, let's put blockchain in it and re-release it, which I wonder if we'll see some more of that over the next, throughout 2023 and into 24, because no doubt there's been some incredible ideas in gaming that for whatever reason just haven't taken off over the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I wonder if blockchain will give those innovations another chance at succeeding.
Well, I said to, I might have said some of this on the pod before, but when Dave and I were looking at making a game, that was kind of going to be our first project, was to build a blockchain game, even though we have no experience. But hey, when's that ever stopped blockchain game development? So we wanted to build something, and I said, wouldn't it be easier if we tried to find games that were previously popular but now long dead, and just say to them, here, we'll give you some money. We'll take the game off you. Your game's not making you any money anymore, so let us just buy it off you, and then we try and infuse blockchain in it. And I still think someone's going to do it. I still think somebody is going to start hoovering up Steam games that no longer, peaked at 5-10 years ago, that now don't really have a player base, and then just say, okay, people like this. Let's see what blockchain can add to it. And hopefully they don't do it in a cash grabby way. Hopefully they do it in, like, maybe it adds something to the game. Like we talked about Dead Drop by Midnight Society, which was actually mentioned in the IMEX keynote about the Polygon partnership. And that they mentioned that they're doing cool stuff with NFTs and using it in the right way to infuse gameplay and empower players, rather than just, I've made this an NFT. It wasn't an NFT before. Now it's an NFT. You can sell it. You can make money. So hopefully whoever starts hoovering up these games can just see what can be done with it. And I think there's going to be a lot of genres that fit very, very nicely with blockchain. I don't think we've really explored it much yet, but I think you're right. I think that's going to be a trend.
I think whilst we're just pulling out of the phase of blockchain games all being clickers, I think it's a ripe time for some some innovations and some concepts that maybe missed the mark in years past to come to the fore again. So yeah, looking forward to seeing those. One that just came to mind actually was I'm not sure whether the developers behind this would actually want to, but Richard Garfield, who currently does the game design for Blockchain Brawlers on Wax. Do you remember Artifact, the Dota 2 take on Hearthstone that
vaguely, yeah,
that released and then didn't release and then went to Artifact 2 and then went to closed beta and then was cancelled. That game was very unique for a TCG, and that's exactly the sort of thing that I'd like to see revitalized if we have, you know, this kind of surge of blockchain games coming to the fore. But sure. Another game that was announced to be building on this new ZK EVM is MetalCore.
That's the one I was thinking.
Rob, what's your history with the MetalCore game?
I mean, I don't have much of a history with it yet, but I'm a big fan. Like it reminds me of somewhere between PlanetSide 2, Titanfall, and Battlefield, which, if I was pitching a game to myself, would be roughly how I would pitch it. Imagine the convergence of those three games. I mean, I was a massive PlanetSide 2 fan. I still am always tempted to hop back in. It's just such a fun game. And then Battlefield, I've played for God knows how many years. And Titanfall, I think, it did really well, didn't it, very early on, and then it kind of petered off. And then Titanfall 2 actually did terribly, and then it did really well suddenly. And I think it's a genre that kind of half mech, half normal FPS. I think it's really cool. That's one of the games that I would put money on being one of the more successful in the space, certainly at the moment. And I remember thinking when they were showing alpha footage, I was like, yeah, this is what alpha should look like. What alphas usually or have looked like in the last 5 years in Web3 gaming, alphas are proof of concepts. That's all we're getting. A lot of people say, oh, it's a closed alpha, but it's a proof of concept. You've built the very bare minimum foundational stuff for your game, and that's what you're using to try and sell it. Whereas what they did was there were some bugs and it was a bit sketchy in places, but it was a game. It was just in its very early stages of reaching release, and oh god, it looks unbelievable. But I haven't tried it yet. I don't think you have either, have you?
I've not had the chance to try it. I have been offered a chance to try it, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't make it work out at the time.
We can do a little swap. I'll get you that key from earlier.
I'm down with that. I first became aware of MetalCore at NFT NYC last year. I was able to have a chat with Sam Kim, who's the CEO of Infinite Games, the studio behind it, and I think at the time they were still thinking, which blockchain should we be on? I'm not going to go into too many details, but, they showed me some footage and we had a great conversation about the game. I brought up immediately, it's PlanetSide. And it was like, yes, that's exactly what it is. That's what we're trying to get across. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to see it now almost a year on, with this involvement with the Immutable ZK EVM. And by all accounts, doing or progressing at a decent pace. I'm looking forward to them opening up playtests and being able to get more people into play that, because, I mean, when did PlanetSide 2 come out? I feel it was 2013, 2014.
A long time ago
and
now,
there's been similar-ish games. You mentioned Titanfall and a few others, but there's nothing quite like PlanetSide, and it looks like MetalCore could be that game. And as you said, if it can gain a fan base and a dedicated set of players, it really could be a strong game to entice the hardcore gamers into trying out blockchain games.
For sure. It's I don't know how much of it's nostalgia for me. So my best friend from school, when I was like 4 or 5, I become best friends with a guy called Tim, and his older brother was 2 or 3 years older than us and an avid gamer. And he was kind of like pace setting for us. Like, he had us playing Doom when it was kind of new, which obviously ages me awfully. But he had us playing Doom and Carmageddon, which is just the craziest game that would never, ever, ever be allowed to be made anymore.
Nope.
Brutal stuff. And he got into, so he got me into Counter-Strike when it was 1.3, so years and years ago. And then I got to stop aging myself here. And then he played PlanetSide 1, and I remember my dad's PC couldn't run it. And then when I got my own, I tried it, and I'd never really played a game that had such scale to it. I've nearly mentioned another game, but I'm going to hold that because that's actually linked to something later. But there was so much scale to the fighting. There were so many people in the battles. And then PlanetSide 2 came out, and it perfectly built on that. And honestly, I don't know why it's not more successful than it is. Although if you ever log on, I actually logged on last year. My friend and I were like, oh, let's just give it a go. We haven't played it in ages. The servers are full. Like, it's still crammed. But when you get into if you get into a big 3-way battle, so there's like 3 factions, to anyone that hasn't played it, there's like 3 factions, and you have to try and take over bases and land. And if you get a 3-way fight between all 3 factions to try and capture a base, it's like a sci-fi film. It's absolutely chaos. There's vehicles and aircraft and bombs and snipers and literally hundreds of players teaming around all the bases and falling out of things. And it's an experience to play it. And if anyone can capture that with Web3, where, I don't know, even some of the stuff has a token reward or an NFT reward for capturing bases and stuff, I've used this twice in articles this week, but it's an evolution of gaming. Yep. That's what it feels like. It's just a very natural evolution where we've been using digital assets for a long time, and now we're actually building a system that can facilitate digital assets in the right way. So yeah, my God, if they can do 30% of what PlanetSide 2 did in terms of fun and scale, that's my life over. I'm going to be on it for weeks.
I think it's, some of my best gaming memories are, as you were referencing there, just these massive large scale battles in PlanetSide. And sometimes it's being like, you're spending 3-4 hours trying to take over one base. Sometimes some of the best moments I had is when you get a group of about 100 of you in one faction, and you just steamroll through enemy territory, and it's just like, right, one base, next base, and it's just this feeling of people. Either, yeah, pretty much, or being a foot soldier and running alongside 100 other people. Yeah, that's to go and take. Can I jump in there, because you've just mentioned something which I think about all the time. We're going on a bit of a tangent here, but whatever, don't care. It's too common now that games have to make you the hero, the main character, like you're some god. I like being a shit muncher. I want to be just the useless, rubbishy soldier that doesn't do anything, just has a gun. I like being a small part of a big wheel. And there's not many games that do that. And you just touched on it there. Like when you're part of a 100-man squad, there's something really cool about it. Like it almost doesn't matter what game you're in. Even other genres I've played, the similar sort of MMO kind of games. When you're in a big scale thing and you're just like a little person in a big story, it just feels cool. I mean, I guess it's more true to life, isn't it? No one has that sort of main character experience. It really emphasizes the teamwork aspect of it. And something that I always loved about PlanetSide was jumping into, it was TeamSpeak back in the day. TeamSpeak servers for your faction, and you'd have like the assigned leader who would direct people, and it was just great to be a part of that. Guild Wars 2 did that incredibly well. Yeah. The World v World, the worst name ever for anything, but shocking name, but such a fun concept. I'd love to see more games do that. Kind of like PlanetSide in that way. There's a lot of overlap. It was. Yeah, a lot of sitting down for many hours at a time, which be like, right, let's go here, here. And just the fights and the strategy and the thought that goes into it, and it's just superb. And if MetalCore can get close to that, even close, it will just be incredible. Nothing's really managed to touch PlanetSide 2 on that front, and it's been a decade, maybe more. So if you get anywhere close, MetalCore, you are on to a winner. You very briefly name dropped Counter-Strike in your little discussion there, and I don't want to dive too much into Counter-Strike 2, but it's a big week for gaming, put it that way. It is. There's been some crazy news. There isn't really that much to talk about
CS2, if you're not into CS, if you're not a really big CS player, you'll look at CS2 and be like, what?
Yeah, pretty much.
There's volumetric smoke. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty big deal for CS players.
Oh, yeah. No, it's cool. They've reworked how game ticks work and a whole bunch of things. But, I mean, they've obviously not mentioned there's going to be blockchain in it. But I'm going to be... I don't think that's going to happen. But it'll be interesting to see now that I think with Counter-Strike 2 coming, which, by the way, is just going to be a free upgrade to anyone who has CSGO, which is amazing.
Yeah, very cool.
It'll be interesting to see how similar games want to respond to that. I mean, I put on Twitter when I saw the first trailer release, it was like, well, that's me not playing Valorant anytime soon. Yeah,
that's a big one. I think it might have been Robbie in the keynote speech mentioned CS, and I think it was Robbie that wondered about whether players, as blockchain becomes more prevalent in games, whether players will just demand more from games where, they'll kind of get used to having the assets that they control. And then when platforms like Steam don't allow that control, whether players might pull back a little bit from it, which I think is an interesting thought. I'm not entirely sure when that would happen. I think we're probably a way off, but I think it's likely down the line, and CS could find itself in that sort of position, particularly as they are such a walled garden, more than most games. So, that's a cool one. I've got one announcement I can't wait any longer because we've already talked about MMOs. It's CCP, and that isn't the Chinese Communist Party. That is the creators of EVE Online. They've only got enough funding to make a AAA blockchain game, haven't they? They only listen to Mint One podcast. I reckon we've got to get a mention somewhere. There's got to be some document like where they've done research and like, look, this nobody thinks this could work. So, they raised $40 million by a funding round led by Andreessen Horowitz, which is A16Z. They're building they call it a AAA title, and they're one of the few companies that I'll allow it.
But fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. They had a lot of big hit Web3 VCs, which I feel like I've been in the space so long now that I now look at what VCs have invested, not just that there's a number like 40 million, but who is it? And they had Bitcraft, who are behind everything at the moment. I mean, they've got a money cannon. They're just running around Silicon Valley, just firing it into Web3 offices. You've got Nexon and Hashed as well.
Nexon behind MapleStory, which are also building their own Web3 games.
Just a giant sort of network, isn't it, of people helping each other out here. But yeah, that's really big news. And I think, again, I wrote this in my article, but there was a lot of people reporting on it with different slants. Obviously, some were like, oh, God, they're trying to cash in and blah, 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 whatever, shut up. But then there was one little part of the press release I just don't think anyone really honed in on. And I'll just read the exact sentence I wrote. What I think is worth planting a flag in here is that key game systems will be developed on chain. That's word for word what they said. Key game systems will be developed on chain. So we're not looking at a cash grab. We're not looking at a CCP game with tacked on NFTs that they sell for God knows how much in an attempt to kind of throw a net over the Web3 community and just rake in a bit of cash. They're building the fundamental systems of the game on chain, and they've got a pedigree of building games with very impressive economies, which is why I keep banging on about EVE Online and tokenomics, because it just fits so well. They have an economist. They have a successful economist working full time on EVE Online. They fly again. This got mentioned by Robbie in the keynote speech. He mentioned EVE Online. He said that they've got that what they call the committee where they fly 15 players who represent the game, and they fly them out probably to Reykjavik, or I think that's where the CCP head office is, to discuss the game and the economy and any changes that might be coming, to make sure that they're plugged in. Firstly, that's a great move. Every company with a major game should be doing that. But secondly, it shows how much care they put into their economy. So yeah, blockchain tokens could really empower them.
something I'll add on top of caring about the economy, it also shows how much they care about how the community views their game.
Yeah.
Which is vital for Web3, and as you say, very rare in the game space. There's very few games that have the longevity of EVE. You could debate EverQuest. I mean, it's kind of people are still playing it.
I don't think it does the numbers that EVE does.
No,
it
definitely doesn't do the numbers, but it's up to like 20-something expansions, which is ridiculous. World of Warcraft, of course, CS, but that's across multiple games, and then EVE, and that's probably about it.
Yeah, it's hard to be one of those legacy games that can keep up. I mean, that must be hard. You've got to innovate constantly.
Yeah, something that I found really interesting in the press release was Hilmar Veigar Peterson. I have butchered that pronunciation, but he's the CEO of CCP Games, who said that he first came up with the idea of building, or at least putting blockchain elements into his titles in 2015. So he's had this idea, or an idea of blockchain concepts.
That's basically evidence.
I don't know. We might have pushed him over the edge.
We had a straw that broke the camel's back.
Players really do want this. But yeah, he mentioned he's been watching the blockchain space for a very long time. You know, he saw CryptoKitties, he saw the big explosion in the last few years, and when CCP were purchased, well, they still have the CCP name, but they were bought by the people behind Black Desert Online in 2018 for like $500 million or something. They were like, oh, maybe now we have the resources to hand to make this blockchain game a reality. And yeah, I mean, to raise 40 million to have a game that, I mean, EVE Online, as I said, is worth $500 million anyway. Black Desert Online, I never played it. I did watch a lot of streamers play it. Huge MMO for its time. It kind of felt like a flash in the pan, but it still has quite a strong player base. I can't wait for it. We've been saying on this podcast since day one that the one thing we're looking for is, a big publisher to come in and say, hey, we are putting our name on the line, our money on the line to create a AAA Web3 MMO, and CCP are going to do it.
Do you know, there's another one that I don't think has got quite the reception they should have. So I believe they announced it at GDC. I just saw the news yesterday. Come to Us. Have you seen their news?
No.
So they own Summoner's War, the mobile game.
Okay.
Now, I've actually played Summoner's War, and it is ridiculously addictive. I mean, it's got an enormous player base. In fact, they released the last expansion, Summoner's War Chronicles, and it did $7.7 million in a week in revenue. Like it was the number one most downloaded, the number one highest revenue generation on mobile platform. It's dominant. And they announced essentially that they're about to infuse blockchain into the game, which it has just flown under the radar because it's mobile, and there's this sort of, we only care about PC and console, even though, as you and I have talked about extensively, mobile is the biggest platform by miles and the king of onboarding new gamers. And Q Lee, God, I've probably butchered his name as well. Q. I'm sorry, mate. I'm trying. His quote is really interesting. So this came after he discussed Play to Earn a little bit, and he was kind of critical of Play to Earn, which I really liked, because when he started talking about Play to Earn, I was thinking Play to Earn, mobile game, this is about to be a nightmare. But he said, unlike Play to Earn games, the Play to Own model is designed to build a sustainable tokenomics. P2O is about creating core gaming content for genuine players so that they can produce valuable in-game items by spending their time and effort, and then encourages continuous circulation of those items within the in-game economy. Summoner's War Chronicles, which is their new expansion, will be the first case in which a AAA game is linked to blockchain mainnet and will be a milestone for sustainable Web3 gaming. Now, what he said before this is that Play to Earn games incentivize the wrong thing. They don't incentivize gameplay, or they don't attract people who want to play the game. They attract people that just want to get the money out of the ecosystem. So I agree with all of that. I think it's excellent. It's going to be built on XPL Games, XPLA Games. I looked up the XPLA blockchain. It's a layer 1, but all I know is it's a layer 1, it's a proof of stake, and then it started sending me down rabbit holes. I was trying to look up just the architecture, and it was just sending me down rabbit holes of companies they're building it with, and I know it's pretty confusing, but it's a layer 1 POS, and I'm telling you right now, this is wildly underreported and underrated news, because that has got I don't know what the player base is. I'm sure we can find it out, but it's got a big player base. Yeah.
No, that sounds fantastic. Just the concept of having a blockchain game that blows up reminds me a bit of Thetan Arena. But yeah, we'll see. Summoner's War, I've heard of. It's one of those. It's in that upper echelon of blockchain gaming that everyone's heard of, even if they've not played it. And yeah, I mean, if they're incorporating blockchain, then that's incredible. And it's great to see that they're taking such a pragmatic approach to it as well. And dare I say the correct approach. I think I've been thinking a lot about play to earn, especially in this past week. And I keep thinking back to Warhammer. That might sound like a strange thing to say, but here's what I mean. Warhammer has two very separate communities, almost, with very limited crossover. You have the community that enjoys painting and making cool figurines and, making things. And then you have the other side of the community, which is they actually enjoy playing the game. And I'm looking forward to seeing a game that is able to have that two-pronged approach and sustain both subsects of community, because I think that's what a lot of these blockchain games are kind of talking about when they talk about, it's like, hey, we want to reward players for creating assets and for them being in circulation, and certainly there'll be people that dedicate their time towards doing that, but also there'll be people that couldn't care less about creating things. They just want to buy cool stuff off the marketplace and then go play their game. And I think if we can get a game that can sustain both, then we'll be on to a winner. Quite what that game will be, no idea. But I'm looking forward to finding out.
Warhammer Online was an excellent MMO that didn't really take off. But just thought I'd throw that in there. I gave that a good go. And there's still actually a private server that runs it, because it shut down a long time ago. There's a private server that runs it, and I jumped on it a couple of years ago to give it a go, and I think it's really underrated, which has always scared me about the gaming industry. You can create a good game and fail, which is a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Artifact earlier. I thought Artifact had a fantastic concept, but for whatever reason, it just did not take off.
I guess it's marketing.
Yeah.
Get the right streamers playing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the key for ball games nowadays, isn't it? Get the right streamers and I don't want to go on a tangent about Web3 content creators, but getting your Web3 content creator to play the game, unless it's Dr. Disrespect, who I guess counts now.
Yeah,
anyone apart from him, you're probably not going to get the players you want. But get a Summit 1G or a XQC or a Dr. Disrespect to play your game, and with any luck, it'll get some circulation. That's for sure. Some more very quickly partnerships announced at GDC. We spoke about MapleStory Universe last week. They announced that their universe is going to be built on Polygon. And they went into a little bit more detail, but not too much. So basically, the MapleStory Universe is a catch-all term for anything Nexon is going to build that will have blockchain in it or will interact with the MapleStory NFTs that they're making. The two most prominent of those is an MMORPG called MapleStory N, and an upcoming sandbox game called Mod N.
What's the N stand for?
I guess Nexon, but they're probably going to come out and be like, oh no, there's this lore reason that we're not revealing to you yet. But anyway, so they've gone one route with the example I just said. One game that's for players and one that seems much more for the creatives and the people that want to make things and be part of that ecosystem. So, not much to go off in terms of those two so far. There's not anything in terms of footage or even concept art, I believe, but it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And secondly, a game called Rumble Racing Star. Have you seen this one, Rob?
No, I don't like the name.
Me neither. But it is by a company called D Labs, not related to D Gods, which is a Web3. I don't think so.
Oh, I pushed those out of my mind.
But it's the Web3 gaming arm of the development house 433 Creative Lab, which is one of South Korea's largest mobile developers. And again, it's another one of these, hey, take a popular game that we know how to make and put blockchain in it. So they've come out of the gate and not just announced the game, but also announced partnerships with a whole bunch of Web3 projects. So Goblin Town, Utes, Killer Bears, there's 2 more. And I know in their trailer, they very obviously use a Bored Ape. I'm not sure whether they have an agreement to use that. But in any case, it is effectively Mario Kart, but with your NFT PFPs. That's the best way to describe it. I was showing the trailer to a friend. They took one look at it and went, "Oh, it's Mario Kart." I went, "Yeah, pretty much."
More or less.
I mean, Mario Kart, but I can play as my cool cat. You can play as your, what's that PFP? The Crypto Gent.
Crypto Gents. Yep.
Okay, there you go.
I appreciate the shout out.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. It's time will tell whether it takes off or not, but the premise sounds good.
Yeah, not bad. I don't really have that much else to add. There's one tiny bit of news which is tangentially associated with Web3, and it was NVIDIA's announcement. So they announced a bunch of stuff, like some new tools and some deep techie, nerdy stuff that, I just don't really find all that interesting. But they did announce something called Omniverse Suite, this is something that Unreal Engine has been doing. It's real-time 3D content creation. So the kind of procedurally generated landscapes and things that you see, this is what Unreal Engine's latest, 5.2 or whatever it's called. This is what they've been doing, where it creates the map as you move around it. So you can essentially explore infinitely because it will just keep creating content for you and you'll see new places, which is really, really cool. So NVIDIA are doing Omniverse, which is real-time 3D content generation. But I don't know if they mentioned this themselves or not. I've only seen the news in a few different places, but it's essentially made with the consideration of industrial metaverse content creation. So that essentially the hub of these tools will be used for creating and rendering AI avatars and digital twins, which is creepy. I don't really know what that means. And basically automating these places. But I think that's a really interesting idea. When you think of these, what was the game? Oh, how do I not remember the name? What's the catastrophic flop where you could explore planets and there was like 90 billion planets you could explore, except that wasn't true. And then people bumped into each other.
The game that turned out No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. This actually kind of turned it round, haven't they? And it's now going to be pretty good. So you could kind of do like a metaverse thing with that. And if you had the procedurally generated, real-time generated 3D content, I mean, there's definitely something there. And allegedly they've made this with the metaverse in mind. So that could end up being a component that may be a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, very cool. I remember seeing in the press release for the CCP Web3 game announcement, the CEO was talking about trying to incorporate AI real-time generated artifacts, elements into that. And I think we'll start seeing more of that. I think since GPT-3 went live in, what was it, November? ChatGPT, I mean. Yeah. In November, December, just the amount of projects and things that are incorporating AI technology is crazy. In the space of 4 months. I mean, Google Docs now has an AI assistant, which is everything does. Adobe
mental. Just announced theirs. It's mad. Because people know cool. that's you can't be left behind on this. This is I think AI is as big, maybe bigger, but it's kind of linked to Web3 in terms of the evolution of our digital lives. AI is becoming that component that's absolutely massive. I've already I paid the monthly fee to get ChatGPT 4 just because I just honestly I use it for some of the more boring work stuff when I need to summarize large documents and bits of it. I don't use it to write content because anyone out there who's writing content and thinks, I just get ChatGPT to do it, I guarantee you Google will start punishing you sooner or later. There's a university website called Turnitin, which checks for plagiarism. That already works with ChatGPT. And a good friend of mine is a lecturer at a university in Cleveland in the US. And he has 28 students. And for their final paper, 2 of them had the entire thing written by ChatGPT, and it was detected. I mean, it's so stupid. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, that will 100% be punished. But I use it for work, but I also just ask it stupid questions. Like, how would, if Shakespeare was a rapper coming out of Compton, what would his work look like? I just want to know, you just think of something and see what it says. It's so addictive. But AI is going to be a big part of Web3 as well, I think.
Yeah, I'll wrap up this episode with a piece of news that didn't release to GDC, but was made at the same time, and it's the news about unstoppable domains. Have you heard about this, Rob?
Something landed in my inbox. I can't really remember.
So on Wednesday, they rolled out the ability for Polygon-based domains on Unstoppable to send encrypted messages to one another, which I think is probably the first major move in creating a proper Web3 social media. They probably don't view it in that way, but the ability for any Unstoppable domains address, caveat on Polygon for the moment, to message any other address without knowing their Twitter, their, any other communications medium.
Yeah.
Brings having a wallet address from just being a string of letters and numbers and characters to a useful tool for someone to contact you. It's small fish right now, but I think that's something that could easily grow to become, there's a whole new part of the Web3 world. So we'll see.
That's how these things start, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
Mark Zuckerberg was just making a page where you could look at girls from the university he was at and then rate them. I mean, these things can kind of just start snowballing. So that does feel like it could be significant.
Yeah. Again, went under the radar, but I feel like it'll be a sleeper hit. Let's see. But there we go. That is episode 61 of the Mint One podcast, wrapping up the news from the past week, primarily GDC 2023. I think just to wrap up real quick, Rob, what do you think will happen in blockchain gaming in 2023 off the back of GDC? How do you think the rest of this year will go for blockchain games?
I think a lot of it, what we already knew in Web2 in 2022, we already knew that the Web2 publishers and game developers were working with blockchain technology. We almost all of them, and the ones that we didn't know weren't. It's that significant. And, we learned that at Gamescom, how many are working in it. I think 2023 is not so much a time where we're going to see loads of mainstream adoption. I think that's already happened behind the scenes. I think it's now more of a PR push, rebranding blockchain's role in gaming, not being a cash grab, not melting polar bears, not being this really expensive high gas fee. I just think it's a rebrand. So I think it's a bit of a boring answer, but it's also necessary that we rebrand how everyone sees it. So that's kind of what I see as 2023's role in Web3 gaming. What about you?
Much along the same lines, I feel. I don't think 23 is going to be the year of, like, for example, that EVE Online developer game is not releasing this year.
Oh, no.
I think we're going to be waiting some time for the likes of the MetalCores and the whatever CCP call their title release. So I think it's going to be another year of, a lot of alphas and betas. I mean, the second other side playtest is tomorrow, 2 days time, something like that. So there's some fun stuff coming up, but rebranding. Moving away from blockchain being something that, as you termed it, melts polar bears, or is just a cash grab, or is something you shouldn't touch, and more towards a technology that actually has use, and, people can look past. It's going to be, I think, the start of the year where people start caring less about the blockchain. Funnily enough, it's going to be less about, this is on Immutable, this is on Polygon. It'll just be, this is a cool blockchain game. It has NFTs in it. Who cares what chain it's on? Because that's the way it should be.
I think it may not be this year or even next year, but the next step to that is where you don't even say blockchain or NFTs at all. Just like, oh, did you get that new skin? Yeah, I got it out of a crate. Oh, sick, that's amazing. Like, you're going to sell it? No, I think I'm going to hold on to it. It's just going to be, you don't even really talk about it.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
Yeah, that's the dream. Everything just goes back to being game items again.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. That's episode 61. Rob, where can we find you?
You can look at the camera. You can find me at tokengamer.io for daily blockchain gaming news. We are working on some YouTube stuff. I don't know when that's going to be released, but I want to get more of it because I'm getting keys and bits and pieces to play, and I want to share my thoughts live while I'm playing it. So that's something we're looking into. The app has just had its first update. I actually think the Polygon chain is live on our app, but we haven't announced it yet because we're kind of testing it. So if you're watching this and you've got the app and you've got a Polygon account, please plug it in and tell us what you think. Can you see your NFTs? Are there any bugs? It's kind of like silent beta testing. We need more people to let us know if it's working properly because the APIs for Wax and the APIs for Polygon are different. So we've had to tune it. Let us know your thoughts on that because we're going to do a really big push. Obviously, the Polygon Immutable news was amazing for our app partnership with Polygon. Like we couldn't be more pleased. So yeah, there's that. And then Twitter at Token Gamer News. I think that's everything. You can find us on LinkedIn, which we're seeing. Weirdly, our website's getting a lot of traffic from LinkedIn, which is cool. So people are obviously enjoying what we're putting on LinkedIn. So find us on LinkedIn. I think that's everything. John?
Awesome. I think on the Atomic Hub side, we're equally excited about the IMX Polygon news.
Oh yeah,
at the time, it was
third ecosystem.
Yeah, it was very much, without going too much into details. Back when we were making the decision, it was like, we've got to pick one. It's got to be either Immutable or Polygon. And now,
we've got both.
Yeah, we've got both anyway.
It didn't matter. we were stressed about it. Stress didn't really matter.
Pretty much, but hey, exciting times. For the latest NFT news, blockchain gaming news, all that good stuff, it's nftinsider.io. This will publish after, a couple of days, a week after it's recorded. So if you haven't already, go check out our top 5 Immutable X games for 2022 video. Very fun putting that one together. For me personally, it's at Hydropowered, HYDROPWRD on everything. Twitter is the best one. Mostly selfies. Sometimes memes. Yeah, it's a fun time.
Internet 101, that is.
Pretty much.
But
yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for watching. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment on what you'd like us to discuss, who you'd like us to bring on as a guest. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, a 5-star podcast review would be awesome. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And we hope you tune in again next week.